Hey friends, thanks for joining me again, and I have been decluttering my house, which is a very hard thing for me to do. It definitely doesn't come naturally, and so it's something I have to work at. But there are a lot of benefits to decluttering. It really does help us to feel better when we don't have so much clutter all over the place. You can kind of think more clearly. You can find the things that you need to find so that you don't overbuy. It can help save money because you can find some things, whereas you wouldn't, if it's buried under a whole bunch of clutter, you may be tempted to just go buy something else instead. It's just easier to keep things organized when we have less things to begin with. And, maybe if you ever move, it can be a whole lot easier to just move without having all this clutter. So there are a lot of benefits to decluttering for sure. So even if it's difficult for you, I have some steps on how I've been decluttering and how it's been helping us. So the first thing I have done is basically look for trash or recycling. It may not be in the form of just outright trash, a used drink cup or something. It may be disguised. So maybe it's a box to something we bought and we're like, well, we'll hold on to this in case we need to return it. But it's been a few months now and we're pretty sure we're not returning the thing. We need to get rid of the box. Or it's a manual to something we don't even own anymore. Or maybe it is. Yesterday I just threw away the directions to how to put it together a tent that we have, but I already know how to put together the tent. So there's really no reason to keep it. So looking around and finding some different things that could just be trash or recycling and getting rid of it can obviously help lighten the load right there. The second thing would be to look for other items that we can sell or donate. Now, these things can come in a lot of different forms. They can come in the form of just mistake purchases, things we shouldn't have bought in the first place, but now we're stuck with it because we accidentally did. Maybe it was something awkward, some kind of an awkward piece of furniture that we hoped would fit in this little corner and it never really did. Maybe it's, uncomfortable. Maybe it's like a piece of clothing that just doesn't fit right. Maybe it's too big, or maybe it's too small, or, just whatever. Maybe it's, out of fashion, just different things that we don't need in our wardrobe. There are things like guilt pieces, things that we look at and kind of make us feel guilty because we bought them, they're expensive, but we're really not using it. So these are definitely something that if it's worth money, it might be worth, trying to sell. Gifts you don't like, that's another thing that can incur guilt on people. If you're given something, you feel like you should use it, or maybe you should feel like you should, want it or have a purpose for it. But if you just really don't, there's really no reason to keep it, and especially if it's clutter, because a gift, its main purpose is when it's actually given. So say it was a holiday gift. Somebody gives it to you, the point of that gift was to show them that for them to show you that they care about you. And so that was done at the moment when they gave it to you. You don't have to hold on to something just because it's a gift and you feel like you should hold on to it for a long time or forever. If it's clutter and you're not really using it or whatever, you shouldn't feel like you have to keep it. So go ahead and find a way to get rid of it. Maybe donate it, maybe give it away, maybe sell it again if it has value. So gifts aren't something we should keep. Unused items. I've been looking around my house for things I haven't used, and honestly, I've set a little bit of a time frame on different things. When I'm going through my kitchen gadgets, I'm like, have I used this within a couple years? If I haven't used it, then I need to be honest with myself and just say, I'm not really using this, I don't really need to keep it. Or my clothes, have I worn it in a year? So just any kind of an unused item, and of course you can set a time frame on it for yourself. You can go longer or shorter if you prefer, but just in general, unused items don't need to stick around. And then the last one is what if items. This one is the one that trips me up the most. What if I need this someday? Have you ever told yourself that? I hate this because if I'm looking at something and I'm thinking, man, what if I need this someday? Oftentimes it's fear driven. What if I need this and I can't buy it? What if I need this and I don't have it? So I try really hard to be honest about it. What if items, if I'm not using them and I can honestly say I probably won't need them, I'll probably be able to find a way to, get by without it, or, even if it's inexpensive, why would I keep something for 10 years when it's $5 to replace? You know what I'm saying? Like, I just don't need to keep that kind of clutter around. It's going to make things easier for me to find. I just need to get rid of it, especially if I can get some money for it. So if I can sell something right now, then the money is more useful now, and then if I need the thing, I can just buy it later. So what if items are definitely something we should, get rid of. So those are the main two, I would say. The main two categories are things that make us feel guilty, like we should keep them because they were expensive, we should want them or whatever. Or what if items. Those are the two main things I would say that keep people living in a lot of clutter. And then the next thing would be, how are we going to keep it that way? So I've got some different ways on how we're going to shop differently to make sure that we're not going to end up in the same position with more clutter later on. So the two things that we're going to try not to buy are things that are just because it's cheap items. I have done this before. Being a frugal person, I'm thinking, all right, maybe we'll get something just because it's cheap. Sometimes if I'm really careful, and I'm looking at something, am I really going to like this thing? I have learned over the years that I really do need to make sure it's something I'll genuinely use and that I shouldn't just get something because it's cheap. And another thing would be a maybe item. Like say this is a clothing item. I try it on, maybe it's okay, it kind of works, it's cheap enough, why not? No, if it's if it's not something I truly like, I really shouldn't be buying it. I'm going to try and make sure to only get things that I genuinely like, genuinely fit, genuinely work. And not just something I'm like, yeah, maybe I could, maybe I won't. And then, get it again, or maybe if it's just because it's cheap too. And then another thing I'm going to do is ask myself if I'm going to regret something. Am I going to regret this and wish I would have bought it? Or am I going to regret this and wish I hadn't brought it home? So that's something I'm going to, start asking myself when I buy it. And then the last thing is I'm going to be really honest about myself about why I want to buy or keep an item. Am I honestly keeping this because I feel guilty? Do I just want to buy this because it's cheap? Do I just want to, keep this item because it has sentimental value? To some degree, some of those things can stay. But if we're not using them, there's really no reason to keep it. So I'm going to be really honest with myself when I'm asking myself these questions. That way I can make better decisions. Be honest about why it is I want to do it. Do I just want to go shopping because I'm emotional? Or do I genuinely need something? That sort of thing. So there you go. There are some ways that I have kind of been looking over my house to help declutter and make things easier on myself and my whole family, actually. Even though it's really hard to do, those are the criteria that I've been using to try to help clear things out and make way, for a better future for us. Anyway, hopefully you found this video helpful. The steps to decluttering. I'm Frugal Green Girl. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.